All right. Well, that's where we find ourselves today in chapter 5 of the story. By the way, if you don't have one of those books, I do highly encourage you. If you're not going to be going through it with the rest of the school, at least have it on your bookshelf because it's a powerful book that gives you an overall picture of the story. I'll tell you how it's working for us at 6th and Gibbs. We're actually a little bit ahead of you. We're going to be in chapter 9 this coming Sunday. But it's been really cool to be able to have people get a picture of the overall scheme of the way and the direction that God is taking His people and taking His nation. A lot of times we get so focused on the individual stories that we forget the bigger picture of what God is doing. And God was doing some awesome and amazing things up until this point. In fact, you guys have, do we have my show up here by any chance? It's not broken. I swear to you, it's plugged in, man. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show it to you guys from here. So everyone take a really close look. Okay, plugged in. I don't know. Troy. Okay, so here we go. Here's where we've come in this. You guys have gone from creation all the way to where we find ourselves today. We are at the base camp at Mount Sinai. The Israelites have spent over 400 years in captivity. One of the things that's amazing about that is you have to realize that if you're going to spend 400 years in one place, you're going to begin to act and do the things that those people in that area do. So for 400 years, they were underneath the thumb of the Egyptian people. The Egyptian people were a polytheist group of people. They worshipped many gods. They had gods for everything. They had gods for the river. They had gods for the sun. They had gods for the moon. They had gods for their shoes. They had gods for everything, for their socks. They had gods all over the place. And so God was bringing them to the base of Mount Sinai because He wanted them to see for the first time that He wanted to be and desperately to be their one God. And so that's where we find ourselves today. I want to talk first a little bit about story, this idea and this picture of story. Is it plugged in? I brought some sweet pictures of my family, which are lots of fun. But my family is, if you were to just take a picture of my family, they look nice and wonderful. My wife is an incredible woman. We have 6 kids, which is great. They're all 12 years and under. So, I mean, it is a party at my house every single day. And so if you were to just take a picture of my family together, they look innocent and cuddly and just fun. But that's not always the way life is it? Right? We went to Idaho where my folks live, and there in Idaho, we had family pictures done. My parents, of course, paid for these awesome family pictures to get done. And it's this wonderful, in fact, I look at the family pictures and I'm like, where did this family come from? They're so pretty. We might get the family here in a minute. Well, you're beautiful. You're the man. But when you break it all down and you begin to peel back the layers of my family, they are they're interesting. They are interesting to say the least. In fact, I got some great pictures of this. If I push this button, will it work? I'm in. All right, so here we go. This is my family right there. Isn't that a good-looking family? Now, we're missing the baby in this picture because this is before the baby was born. You know, but then when you start, if you were to live at my house, you would see a lot less of this and a lot more of this. That's my 2-year-old Jude. He's wondering what exactly he did to send little Elliot there into a temper tantrum. It might have been the way he was trying to carry him around in the bassinet. Not exactly sure. I want to introduce you here to Abigail. Abigail, she's I don't know. I just remember this day because my daughter turned to me and she said, "Hey, Dad, look, I'm taller than you." Yeah. Oh, I have a Cedar. This is Cedar. Cedar loves dance. She's big into dance. She loves to dance, and she ballets just about everywhere we go. And so this is her doing a ballet, and this is my 2-year-old making fun of her. So, kind of crazy. Here, I got a picture of Aaron John. He's in this one. This is great. This is them pretending to fall into a cliff, into a cavern. Yeah, I don't even understand. Here's how we eat in our family. It's kind of the way we do things. It's messy, right? I mean, life itself, it can be messy. And the family picture looks all great, but there is a story behind this family picture. In fact, one of the things I was honored with this last Father's Day was I got an opportunity to baptize my oldest, Carly, there. That's Carly, and she's getting baptized. My son, he likes to destroy things. He's going to make a great chemist, or I have no idea what he's doing there. You know, this is the family. This is the family. This is a great picture. They asked if they could help pile some weeds into the road for the neighbors, and then they jumped in them. My son, I threw this one in here at the end here because being from Western Oregon, we don't exactly know what to do with snow, so I think I don't know what he's doing. He's just carrying it around, you know. But and if you go to my house, story at my house is much the same. We're always wondering, is this okay, Dad, that I do this? Is this all right? He's loading his dump truck with a bunch of stuff, but there they are. They're such a nice, wonderful family. You know, that's the story. That's, if you get in the individual stuff, the story begins to make sense. And as you look at these kids now, you know, you see a little bit more into them. You see a little bit more of who they are. And as we go through the story, as you go through the story, as we as a church back in Cottage Grove have gone through the story, we've began to see God just a little bit differently. You begin to see his intricate plan. You begin to see how much he loves and how much he cares for his people. But you also begin to see that life itself is a mess. It's a mess. And if there's one thing that you hear today, I want you to understand and I want you to know that God has an awesome, incredible story written for you. All you have to do is trust him as the author, because he wants to write you an awesome story. Here are the elements of a story. I've been thinking a lot about this story, and the elements to a good story, it takes characters, right? It takes you and me. It takes a Moses. It takes an Abraham. It takes a Joseph. It takes these guys in order to make a really good story. But here's the thing, the beauty of it is number two is it takes conflict. Conflict's a tough thing. I got an 8-year-old daughter, Cedar, you know, the ballet one? She was writing a story. She was writing a story for class, and she was writing out this wonderful story about a princess, because she likes princesses, because she's a ballet dancer, right? And she was this great story about this wonderful princess and how this princess lived a wonderful life, and then the princess married the prince. And that was it. We said, well, you got it. If you're going to write a good story, there has to be conflict, right? You can't, it's boring. I mean, it doesn't work like that. You're not going to see Disney put out a movie unless there's something bad that happens to the poor princess, right? Or she's stuck with a nasty stepsisters or whatever it may be, right? So I said, Cedar, you got to put conflict in this story. No offense, but it's boring. And so she said, I will, Dad, I will. On the way to the wedding, she slipped and tore her dress, but a seamstress arrived. Right? We want conflict. But you know what? The truth is that we really don't want conflict. Wouldn't it be nice if we could go through life conflict-free? Not have any problems, not have any issues, not have to deal with addictions, not have to deal with our messy families, not have to deal with messy friends. we would prefer a conflict-free life. But that's not the way God works. In fact, if you want him to write your story, you better be prepared for conflict, and you better be prepared for a lot of it. Because it's going to happen. It's life. The question is how are you going to deal with that conflict? How are you going to respond in the midst of conflict? And now the other beauty about a story, a good story, is a good story has nice resolution, right, in the end, where the prince and the princess, they marry. I mean, that's positive resolution. And they live happily. Absolutely. Wouldn't that be great? Here's the sad part about our stories, guys. There is no resolution. Our stories continue on and on. And I mean, think about Joseph. Joseph, you guys went through the story of Joseph. Joseph had come to the point in time where he was completely comfortable with what his brothers had done with him. In fact, he named his two sons basically, I'm going to forget all that has happened, and I am now fruitful. That is what he's named his sons. He's forgotten it. And then who shows back up into his life? All 12 of those brothers, right? Oh, man, I thought I'd gotten you out of my life. Well, here we find ourselves. We're 400 years stuck in Egypt. We've had this awesome, incredible experience. In fact, I want to show you a list of the crazy things that they had gone through. This is what they had seen. They're gearing up towards Mount Sinai. They had seen the 10 plagues. They had seen the Passover. They had seen the parting of the Red Sea. They had seen all of these amazing, miraculous things. And you're thinking to yourself, because I know I thought to myself, if I had seen all of these things, there is no way I would have complained, right? I mean, come on, who are these people? I mean, they've got some serious forgetfulness issues. I mean, they've seen God part the sea. They walked through the biggest aquarium on earth, right? And yet, where are they at? I mean, they're ungrateful. They're complaining. Oh, we should go back to Egypt. You know what, though? As I've looked at this, I began to realize that I'm a lot of the same way. I forget quite easily the amazing and awesome things God has done in my life. And then I find myself in conflict, and then I ask the same question the Egyptians asked. Oh, why me? I mean, come on, seriously, God. You should send me back to Idaho. At least it was dry there. Go Boise Broncos. Sorry, but here's the thing. If we can remember to put our life into perspective, then we're going to be able to conquer some of this stuff. And we're going to, if we can put into our minds the ability to remember how awesome and how wonderful God was in the past, then God's going to do awesome things with us in the future, all right? So they saw this. God led them on about a 2.5, 3 month journey to Mount Sinai. So they had gone from Egypt to Mount Sinai, and they had seen many of this stuff. They saw the mantle, they saw the quail, and all of this time, God is preparing them for what is going to happen when they arrive at Mount Sinai. All of this time, wow. God is preparing you right now for what he's going to do at your Mount Sinai. And the beauty of it is all of the things that happened before on their way to Mount Sinai, God was preparing them for the trip that they were going to make to Mount Sinai. So guess what? Not only is God preparing you for what your Mount Sinai, but God has prepared you for where you are right this moment. And he has put you where he wants you, and he is going to use you. The question is, are you going to allow him to write your story? Are you going to allow him to write your story? They saw all of this stuff. When they arrive at Mount Sinai, they have some difficult times. In fact, I want I'm so used to using my phone to do this stuff here. There we go. You have your Bibles with you, which, I don't know, if you brought it, awesome. Turn to 1 Peter. Turn to 1 Peter. I want you to realize that God allows you and has put you in the midst of the story that you're going through on purpose. And He is writing your story in order to turn you into a person, and He's writing the story of the Israelites in order to turn them into people of faith. They are going through difficult times. They find themselves extremely hungry. They find themselves without water. They find themselves wandering in the midst of this desert, wondering if they're ever going to arrive at the place that they're going to arrive. And the whole time, God is preparing them for what they're going to do in the future. What you are going through right now, there is a good chance God is preparing you, and you're wondering why it is that you have to go through what you're going through, why it is that your family is so messed up, why it is that your friends have issues, why it is that you can't conquer this addiction or this sin. Why are you having such a hard time with it? And God is saying, if you trust me, I'm going to bring you out on the other side. I'm going to write you an incredible story, and I'm going to use the story that you're presently in right now. Right now. 1 Peter. Check it out. These are some pretty sweet verses, by the way, if I find them. Okay. All right, 1 Peter chapter 1, starting in verse 3. It says, chapter 1, I'll get there. It says, praise be to God the Father, the Lord Jesus Christ. In His great mercy, He's given us new birth into a living hope through the resurrection of who? Jesus Christ. From where? From the dead, and an inheritance that can never perish, spoil, or fade, kept for you where? Is that here? No, it's not. Who through faith are being shielded by God's power. Who's shielding you? Is He ever going to send you into your story through something that you cannot endure? No, He's not going to do that for you, right? He's shielded you with His power until the coming of what? Salvation is ready to be revealed when? In the last time. Is that happening now? No. That's why we go through junk. That's why we have stuff in our lives, right? So in this you greatly rejoice. I mean, that does sound rejoiceful, doesn't it? I mean, we're rejoicing because of the hope that is stored up for us in the future. I mean, that's some awesome stuff that God is preparing us for. And we are hopeful in that. But check out the present. Though now for a little while you may have had to suffer what? Grief and all kinds of trials. So you have this future glory to look forward to, but guess what? In this day, in this time, you are going to be forced to live with grief and all kinds of trials. How do we respond to it? These have come to you so that your faith of greater worth than what? Gold or dollar bills, y'all, which perishes even though refined by fire, may be proven genuine and will result in praise, glory, honor when Jesus Christ is revealed. Though you may not have seen Him, you love Him. You may not know Him, but you believe in Him, and you are filled with an inexpressible and a glorious joy. Why? Because God is increasing your faith through the trials that you go through. Isn't it James that says that we endure trials and we should count it a joy that we're enduring trials? I got to be honest with you, that's messed up. I do not go into trials and tribulations or difficult times thanking God for what I'm going through. But I should. You see, in the end, it's God that works all things for the glory of Him. The girl I baptized, her name is Carly. Carly actually isn't one of my biological children. Carly is someone who came to live with us about the age of 4. In the midst of Carly coming to live with us, her and her brother came at that time, and it was difficult. We went from, I kid you not, here's how God writes an incredible story. When my wife and I got married, we decided it would actually be harmful to ever bring a child into this world. Like, that would be messed up to ever bring a kid into this world. Then we thought, you know what, it might not be bad. By the age of 30, maybe we'll have one, maybe two, so the one isn't spoiled. That's kind of what we thought. I was 29 years old, and I had 5 children living underneath the roof of my house. Living on a youth pastor's salary, 900 square feet. I had no idea what I was going to do. I was selling cars, trucks, kidneys. Used to have long hair. I mean, all of that stuff. I mean, it was crazy. But as God wrote that story, it was incredible to see the awesome things that God did. Food showed up on the doorstep, clothes that were the right sizes, which was amazing. All of this stuff, God blessed us because we were faithful in the midst of the trials. And I wasn't happy about the trials, but I look back now and I count it a joy to have gone through what I've gone through because of what God has done. So God arrives, he arrives there at Mount Sinai with his peeps. He gets there at Mount Sinai, and he wants them to understand that he wants to be their God. So he tells them that they're going to have to, if God is going to be their God, he's got to do some work with them. He's got to make them into a holy nation. So he tells them, in fact, they prepare for God by consecrating themselves for 3 days. They clean themselves up for 3 days. They took a shower, which was a plus, right? Put on some deodorant, right? They cleaned themselves up. For 3 days, they prepared to meet God. And you know what? All of the cleaning that they did, all of the preparedness that they did, still didn't grant them access to God's mountain. It doesn't matter how much you try to clean yourself up. You're not going to be granted access to God's mountain. He was trying to get them to understand that God is a holy God and they are not. And I hate to break it to us today, but a lot of times we do the exact same thing. We put ourselves on a pedestal and we say, man, I am so glad I am so much better than Terry O'Casey. I have got some issues, but nothing like what Terry O'Casey has. Right? We do the exact same thing. We set the standard of holiness in our lives every single day. And God is wanting us to understand, and he wanted his people to understand here at Mount Sinai that God was absolutely holy and that they were not. God is holy and we are not. God is holy and I am not. But he introduced them to this concept of these 10 commandments. To this concept of 10 commandments. These 10 commandments are found in Exodus chapter 20. Also, they're found in Deuteronomy chapter 5, is this list of 10 commandments. Now, when it boils I have no idea what I'm doing, but I apologize. When it boils down to it, these 10 commandments can be summed up basically with 2 things, and then I added a third there that is found in Deuteronomy chapter 6. What God wanted from his people is he didn't want them to obey all of these commands and all of these things perfectly because he realized that he couldn't, or that they couldn't. There's not a single person on earth who is good enough to earn their way into heaven, who has been good enough to earn their way anywhere. There isn't enough good things you can do to erase the bad things that you've already done. You can't go back and fix it. That's why Paul says in Philippians that we put behind us and we move forward, right? We put the things that we've done behind us and we begin to move forward. And as we move forward, we begin to live for who? For Jesus, right? Not for ourselves. Because that's usually where I get in trouble, is when I start living for myself, right? So he says, if you want to be able to figure this out, you're going to quit living for yourself, and you're going to do 2 things. Jesus says this in the Gospels. Well, Matthew chapter 25, when he's confronted with the Pharisees, they say, what is the greatest commandment? He says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, right? So we are to love God. And the second one, Jesus said, and the second one is just as good as it, is love your neighbor as yourself. These 10 commandments are summed up in these two things right here. Love God, love people. Love God, love people. The first 4 commandments are all about how you love God. The next 6 commandments are all about how you love people. If you can figure out in your life how to love God and how to love people, it's all going to start adding up. It's all going to start to make sense. And then, believe it or not, you're going to find yourself living up to a standard that you thought was never even possible. Doing things that you never thought God would do in your lifetime. You got to figure out how to love God, love people. He wanted the Israelites to figure out how to love God and love one another. To love God. This is really unraveled about the time Moses was on his way down. He's got the video. He's got the commands with him, right? And he gets down to the bottom there, and there's like this big old party going on. And Joshua, he hears the party going on, and Moses is like, what's happening? And Joshua's like, I don't know, this can't be good. But we're going to go down and we're going to go check it out, Moses. And so he gets down there, and what has happened is all of the people have looked at Aaron, who is Moses' brother, and they've said, hey, Aaron, dude, Moses, I think he ditched us, bro. We're done for, man. Hey, let's do this. Let's start worshiping our own God, huh? So Aaron's like, well, I don't know. Okay, guys, bring me all your gold. So he takes all of their gold, and he melts it all down, and he creates this golden calf with all of their gold, with all their junk. And they start dancing around this calf, and they start singing, and man, they're just excited about this calf because this is the calf that led them out of Egypt, right? Because that's what led them out of Egypt, you know. Forget about the fire and the cloud. It was the calf, right, guys? They get down there, and Moses is he is just about ready to blow a gasket. I remember my dad coming home sometimes like that, you know. I find myself coming home like that now every once in a while, right? When my son has taken and thrown flour all over the kitchen and then has decided the best way to clean it up is with water, you know. So, and I can understand what Moses was going through. I mean, he is so frustrated and he is upset, and God is just about as mad, right? And so they get down there, and Moses says, what happened, Aaron? And Aaron's like, I don't know. I put a bunch of gold in the thing, and pop, here came this calf. Really, Moses? Is that how it works? Really, Aaron? Is that how it works? And he was frustrated, and he was angry, and he was upset. But here's the thing with these Egyptian people, and this is what we're going to see as we move forward in this story, is God had to get past some of their history. The only reason that the Israelites decided they were going to start worshiping a cow was because that's what they did in Egypt. A lot of times, guys, when we face conflicts and we face difficult times in life, we turn back to what got us through in the past. Whether that's drugs or alcohol or porn or whatever it might be. We turn back to that stuff. And God is saying, no, I want you to turn to me. I want you to love me with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. Now, Deuteronomy chapter 6. Let me close with this. Here is quite an awesome thought. But as God was talking to the people, and he gave them this list of commands. You know, don't murder, don't kill each other. Keep the Sabbath day holy. All of these commands. One of the things God realized is that these things were going to go away if people didn't teach them to one another and didn't live them out in their lives. In fact, I tell you, we finished up with chapter 8 last week at our church, and chapter 8 is all about this sin cycle that the people fell into because they forgot God's law. Deuteronomy chapter 6 are the verses there that encourage us that if we're going to live out what we believe in God, then we're going to share it with the people around us. Not only that, we're going to talk about these things. That's what I love about the story is it makes it simple. It makes it simple you should be talking about these things, living them out as you go from place to place to place. Live out your faith. You want God to write you an awesome story? Live out your faith. Trust in him and allow the author and the perfecter of your faith to write you an awesome story. Let me pray for you. Father God, you are truly an awesome and incredible God. You are a God that can be trusted. God, you have proven yourself faithful to these Israelite people as they wandered through the desert. And God, you're going to continue to prove yourself faithful. God, so many times, God, we fail to live up to your standard. And God, we recognize that and we know it. And so God, I pray that you give us strength to live out our faith as we go. And God, when we fail, may God, you give us the strength to stand back up and to keep pursuing your faith. God, I thank you for these young men and these young women who are here, who, God, have a desire to make you number one. God, may you help them write an awesome story. And God, I know that there are those who are going through a mess of a story right now, and they don't know, God, whether you can be trusted with their story. And so, God, I pray that you will be faithful and that you will show them, God, that you are a trustworthy and an awesome God. Thank you for this day. Help us as we go from here to live it out. And it's in your name I pray. And all God's people said, Amen. Amen.
Amen.